So this is like the opening, or part of the opening of Shadowmouth. It's a children's fiction novel. I'm going to apologise in advance. There is a language called Necramic, which I haven't really tried out yet, so it might just sound a bit stupid. So, beams of green light flashed in the courtyard. Chelsea clamped her hand over Tom's mouth and crouched in front of the sill. Necromancers. She poked her head up and looked at the creatures. They were built like humans, dressed in scarlet robes with belts around the waist, filled with vials. Emerald and purple liquids swirled inside. Their skin was pale, and their hair was white, swept back into flimsy ponytails that trailed down the back of stiff cloaks. Where are their eyes? Tom had managed to wriggle free from her hand. Chelsea pushed his head down and put a finger to her lips. She looked at where the necromancer's eyes should have been, but could only see black smoke. How many are there? Chelsea held up 2 fingers. The necromancers glided forward, their feet hovering inches above the cobbled pavement. "Shivati dan shok," one of them snapped. The second nodded and pulled out a flask from its belt. Inside was a fluorescent green powder that pulsated against the glass. Chelsea grimaced and watched its bony fingers reach around, down inside and claw at the powder. The necromancer then brought the mixture to its lips, sucking the contents dry off its fingers. The necromancer's body shook violently. Emerald light burst through the neckline of its robes, and seconds later, the creature disappeared. "Where did it go?" Tom said. Chelsea's stomach sank when she glimpsed the green light that illuminated the corridor outside of the classroom. "I think it's inside." Tom's hand entwined itself in hers. Footsteps moved down the corridor. Chelsea heard glass and stones crunch beneath the necromancer's feet. It was no longer gliding, it wanted to be heard. She yanked Tom's hand and the two began to scramble their way across the floor, behind the remaining canvases. "What are we going to do?" Tom said. Chelsea considered jumping out of the window, but the other necromancer hadn't moved. It was patiently waiting, eyes locked on the building. Shallow, rattly breaths lingered outside the classroom door. There was a small window that allowed passers-by to look into the room, but it was clogged with thick black smoke. Chelsea's hand slid around the floor, searching for the shard of glass. Tom pointed to the centre of the room. She followed his gaze and noticed the shard in plain sight of the door. "Sakma Sindorai," the necromancer rasped. Smoke seeped into the room. The door frame hissed and bubbled until the wood melted away. A gooey purple liquid ran down the sides and slithered onto the barricade of furniture. It dissolved in seconds, leaving acidic puddles. They foamed on the floor. Tom shifted his position, but Chelsea pulled him back. "We're going to have to split," she mouthed. There was a sharp scrape before a stool clattered to the floor. "Ready?" The necromancer approached the canvases. "Now!" Chelsea yelled. Both of them leapt out from either side. The necromancer looked confused for a moment, but quickly turned its sights on Tom. Chelsea scrabbled around for the shard of glass and turned on their attacker. "Got it!" It was too late. Tom had been backed into a corner, his kneecaps knocked together. The necromancer descended on him. Its bony fingers reached for the vials around its waist. Chelsea looked at the shard in her hand and then at Tom. She was close to the exit. Tom's eyes widened. He shook his head violently. "You promised!" Chelsea's face remained blank. She met his eyes with a stony stare. She darted through the door and left Tom's shrieks behind her. She hurried down the corridor, struggling to keep her balance on the rubble beneath her feet. Wallpaper peeled down on either side. Chelsea could just make out the green glint of the fire exit ahead of her. She pushed forward, her hands reaching out to the metal bar. She made contact and heaved her body through the door. That's when she saw the cobbled pavements, and cold air blasted her face. She'd made it. Then there was the second necromancer in front of her. The creature's lips twitched, the corners of its mouth twisting into a sneer. The mouth then opened and a foul white liquid splashed on her face. Chelsea spluttered. She tried to lash out with a glass shard, but her arms wouldn't move. Her body felt like it was freezing from the inside out. Icy crystals spread across her skin. It travelled from her feet, up her neck, and slowly consumed her face. She tried to scream, but her limp lips clamped shut. She struggled to breathe inside the tomb of ice. She looked into the necromancer's eyes. The black smoke enveloped her.